Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Market Talk with Musaffa, your weekly deep dive into halal investing, and where faith meets finance, right? And investment. We're on a mission to halalify investment world, one stock at a time, inshallah. So let's explore the market through halal lens and covering opportunities that align with our values and the future. So today's show, today's Market Talk with Mustafa. Again, you have uh, your host, myself, Renat Ziad Life, and we have our guest, Brother Shah Jahan. He's joining to discuss this important topic of today's for the market, which is important to learn for all our Muslim brothers and sisters who is interested in investing and they want to stay on top of the market changes that they may affect their decision making, right? So today we're discussing very interesting topic. It's Greenland geopolitics and the markets, right? An emerging flashpoint and this global risk pricing for 2026. What once seemed like a remote Arctic issue has quickly reshaped the market sentiment right now with the trade policy tensions, tariff threats, and strategic competing driving volatility issues. And then probably currencies and some other areas might be affected too. And then before we begin, I would like to briefly mention that there's always very good resources for our investors and our community. And we put the same on the same related topic. There's a Academy article. If you go to our academy.musaffa.com, you will see all our articles. And then the article that dedicated for this topic is Markets and Geopolitics in Flux, how the Greenland dispute is reshaping risk in 2026. So I want to highlight that you can go and then read that article. There are interesting sources are given. You can always take a huge benefit. Another point I want to highlight at the beginning. So you can see the QR code on the left side top side QR code. Download Musaffa, so you can download and our app. It's an amazing app, one of our favorite apps that I of course I'm biased, but one of the favorite apps that I have used. Very handy, very easy to use, and you have lots of benefits, even the free user, of course. So now, if anyone who is on who's watching us, who's supporting us and watching us, and who's interested in our market talk with Musaffa, um, please leave your name if you want to, but mention which country you're joining from. It's important for us for the people who's joining to see where the audience is coming from, so that they can be together with the community, listen us together, and then share all their knowledge, right? So, and right before I start to discussion, the main portion of discussion with the brother Shah, um, this all our market talk with Musaffa, we have to put the disclaimer because we are ACC registered investment advisor. Any information that is discussed, any content has been put here on these shows, they're only for informational and educational purposes. Nothing is any type of professional advice, nor legal, nor investment, neither finance or any type of advice. And then the sole purpose of this to share with the community a few ideas and thoughts about the market, right? So this is the main disclaimer that I have to put before we start. And now we can dive into our very interesting topic, right? Brother Shah, how do you feel today?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, feeling great. And Assalamu alaikum to you, Brother Anath, and to all of our viewers. Happy to be here again and excited to discuss this very pertinent topic, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for being with me and then going through this interesting discussions weekly and sharing your time with the community. Alhamdulillah. I know that you are one of the busy man, busy guys who is doing an amazing job in Alhamdulillah in Musaffa, which I'm
Yourself as well,
very
brother
super
Anat, you
proud.
know, like, of course, of
Thank
course.
you. Thank you so much. And super proud of you, all the work you do. So, my first question, Brother Shah, for you: why has Greenland, historically a remote Arctic territory, which was not the main topic of any previous, like maybe you take 10, 20 years, maybe a little bit further if you look, there was some contentions, but it was never has been a topic, right? This one has become a core geopolitical story in early 2026 right now. Like we started the year with the Greenland to be the hot topic right now.
Mhm.
So why has Greenland become that topic? What do you think?
Great question. Great question. And like you said, I think it's not something that's been in the news or considered of great geopolitical influence in the public sphere for the last couple of decades. But like you said, if you look a little further back, there have been times in the past as well when you've seen how important Greenland can be. And an example is, for example, during World War II, Germany occupied Denmark. So then that channel, which is called the GIKU gap, so that's the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap. It's one corridor that goes across these countries and it separates the North Atlantic Ocean from the Norwegian Sea and the North Sea. So in a wartime scenario, it becomes very relevant strategically. So
Mm,
during World War II, Germany wanted to use that GIKU gap to attack European convoys. And so the UK and the United States collaborated to sort of close that choke point. It's a geopolitical choke point, is that whole passage. And so controlling Greenland or having strategic assets on Greenland helps you solidify that choke point. So the United States has always really considered Greenland to be of geopolitical significance in that respect. The reason why you see it flaring up more now is because I think, as we all know, the world is entering a more geopolitically tense era. Like there's more fragmentation. We're moving into a
yeah.
new world order. There's more conflicts are heating up. There's conflicts all over the world. And so as a result, it becomes more important. You know, during peacetime, it's something that you can sort of keep on the back burner, but now as you know you as things between the great powers in the world in terms of geopolitical competition heat up, you're going to see a lot more focus on all of these geopolitical choke points, not just Greenland, but Greenland is an important one right now. So it's important for the United States to defend its eastern seaboard, and then
Yeah.
also for missile defense. So for Space Force, so the United States Space Force has a base there right now. It's
Hmm.
relevant sort of to defending the Arctic Circle, to those sorts of missile defense systems that the United States is potentially looking to build. So that's sort
Yeah.
of its geopolitical significance.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for going. And then again, to for our audience, I believe there are people who are watching. Please even drop any emoji is important for us. It motivates our keep going. But the discussion is entering the most interesting part. This is just the beginning. Thank you so much for everyone's attention. Um, so now, the next question: how do Greenland's political status and the sovereignty and then like ownership by Denmark and then Europe's involvement and all of these like brings to debate of the and then this debate, how does it contribute to the risk pricing in market? You know, the does it go
Great,
up,
great.
down, or like anything of that sort?
For sure, great question. So Greenland is a territory that's a part of the Danish realm or the Kingdom of Denmark. So the Kingdom of Denmark is consisted of Denmark, the Faroe Islands, and Greenland, which is sort of semi-independent, but it's a part of the realm of the Danish realm. And Denmark is obviously a part of Europe, and it's also a part of NATO. So the reason this is so relevant and can have such an effect on risk pricing and on market movement is because when the United States seeks to increase its influence, potentially obtain Greenland, it's seeking to obtain a territory that belongs to another NATO member. So that can cause a lot of risk aversion in the markets because they don't know it's a really big geopolitical, potentially a black swan, which is not something people
Mhm.
saw coming. It's not something anybody predicted would come be the news tomorrow. Um, and so if that happens, you're going to see investors who are becoming more skittish, right? Because okay, so if there's some sort of friction between the United States and Europe, United States and its NATO allies, then maybe there's going to be investors who are skittish and don't want to put as much money in European markets. There may also, what you're going to see is, I think, structurally, and we can talk a bit more about this later as well. I think investors are pricing in more of a geopolitical risk premium for the United States because they consider it's just more risky at this stage because of things like Venezuela, what this interest
Yeah,
in Greenland. Suddenly, investors are less certain, and that uncertainty makes it more expensive from the investor's perspective. So it's really a lot
understood.
of uncertainty about how that friction could increase, how could it affect trade routes. There's a lot of question marks, and that causes an increase in that risk pricing.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. This is a very interesting point. Yes, and I totally agree with you. Um, and then if you take it like Venezuela happened recently,
Yes,
and now it's like a double down on it, and then it seems like it's going to continue, which
100%.
is going to bring a little bit more these contentious, like a period of time with the geopolitics. People even get a little bit more, okay, is there going to come more, right? So and then they're when they're like back and forth one after another, so it's sort of will scare off some of the investors, and it may bring even more challenges in terms of and then definitely will affect the market. This is my view, of course. Again, here we're discussing our personal views. What we find is on the experts put on about the market discussions. But I want to bring one more thing that on X, one of our listeners, one of our followers, put the great session and then put the thumbs up, which is great. And thank you so much. I don't see the name. It starts with N, but if our moderator can put it to the screen, that would be amazing too. But thank you so much for you see this one. So thank you so much for supporting us. Anything that your comments, reactions, your questions even can come up here, so you can be shown on these market talks with Musaffa, and maybe get famous, of course. And then in the future, of just to share with everyone, in the future we'll start giving away some gifts. Maybe we'll give like a 50% discount to whoever joins and then has the code, right? Or something like that. So that is another way of benefiting from these market talks with Mustafa coming and joining us. Thank you so much. And we're continuing with our questions, interesting questions. Thanks for everyone's attention. So, um, what market reactions have seen tied to a Greenland dispute? So have you seen anything like in equities, currencies, commodities, or maybe you think that it could affect any of this specific? Would it affect the equities? Would it affect the currencies? Or would it affect the commodities? Your view on this point?
Great question. So what we saw initially is, as this sort of tiff between the United States and its NATO and European allies was growing, as this discussion over Greenland was heating up, the stock market kind of took a hit, and that sort of ties back into what you and I were discussing just a moment ago. Is that investors don't like that sort of friction? They don't like the geopolitical uncertainty, and it causes a flight to safer assets, or assets which are perceived as being safer. So when that
Mm-hmm.
happens, you saw money pulled out of the U.S. stock market and also the European stock market. Interestingly, so the S&P 500, I think, dropped roughly 2%. So it had been on sort of a bull run. It had been growing. It had a pretty good time of it in 2026 so far. And in
Mm-hmm.
basically one day, it wiped out most of its gains it had for most of 2026 so far. So it took a
Mm.
massive hit because of that friction, that uncertainty, and so did the European stock markets. I think the German stock market fell by, if I'm not wrong, about 1.8 or 1.9%. Stocks, a more broad-based European indicator, also fell by a similar amount. So because there was this uncertainty, this friction between Europe on one hand and the United States on the other, you saw global investors sort of pull away from both. towards assets which they think and perceive to be more safe or more reliable, which in these moments of geopolitical unrest are typically commodities or unrelated currencies. So you're seeing, which has been the story of 2025 so far, and it's the same
Hmm.
continuing to 2026, a lot of money going to gold and silver. And that's likely to
Yeah.
be the case. Even as this winds down, this issue over Greenland. Recently, President Donald Trump was at Davos, and he indicated that a framework of a deal was announced. So the issue
Hmm.
itself will settle down, but it's increasing this air of uncertainty. Like, I don't know what could happen in global markets anymore. I can't
Yeah.
predict what could happen geopolitically anymore, and I don't know what the effects will be. So I think
Yeah.
there's already is, and you will likely continue to see an increase in focus on safe assets, gold, commodities, safe currencies that are unrelated to these sorts of geopolitical conflicts.
Did you see anything with the US dollar currency being affected?
Yes, yes. The dollar dropped a bit in response to it. I think the reason you didn't see more of a drop, and this is, of course, my personal opinion, is because, like I said, this is a conflict that involved Europe as well. And typically, what you'd see is if a single currency, such as the US dollar, takes a hit, some of the money that's being pulled out of the dollar or the interest
Hmm.
being pulled out of the dollar will move not only to gold, but to other currencies. However, because
Yeah.
and usually one of those big ones is the euro. So if money goes
Yeah.
out of the dollar, it goes to the euro. Because this
Yeah.
was a debacle sort of that involved both the United States and Europe, you saw
Hmm.
some money, I think, being pulled out of both. So the dollar did fall, but I think the reason you didn't see a bigger fall is because some money also went out of Europe and went into
Mm,
gold. So I
I
think
see.
this had a negative effect on the dollar, and it could have a longer term and even more negative one. That's my opinion.
Great. There was an interesting question coming from the same user. It says, "Does the Greenland have its own stock market?" I don't think it has its own stock market. It's actually at least part of Denmark, right? So
Yes.
it's
Yes. Mhm.
if Denmark has its own stock exchanges, probably, but Greenland specifically as an island, which is more autonomous part of Denmark, doesn't have its own stock exchange or stock market. This is my I haven't actually dig into this part, but if you know, brother Shah, if you can
You're
say a few
correct.
words.
It doesn't have its own stocks or companies operating there are probably listed in Denmark or other European exchanges. And for reference for all of our viewers, Denmark is a very big landmass, but it only has a population of around 50,000, and they're in about roughly just like 16 towns. They don't have railroads, they don't have a lot of roads, so it's not really a developed enough economy alone in order for it to really have its own independent stock market.
Yes, that's correct. And then now I want to switch a little bit to a macro type of, and then political intersections area, um, and then pick your brain on that. So, how might ongoing geopolitical stress influence the central bank policy expectations, particularly with the respect to the Federal Reserve, if it's a U.S. one, or maybe even European central banks? If any thoughts on that point?
Great question. And this is obviously my opinion, but I think inflation has been a concern in recent years. And what you saw really at the end of 2025 is a lot of these investment banks and research institutes put out reports saying that inflation we expect to sort of trickle down and come back to normal levels in 2026. And that central banks would be cutting interest rates slowly
Hmm.
over the year. Like it would by the end of 2026, we'd be back to normal or near normal levels. But I think what
Yeah.
things like this sort of geopolitical tension, this sort of event, like I said, it increases uncertainty. And that uncertainty can keep inflation higher for longer. Because, for
Hmm.
instance, if let's say there was a bigger conflict over Greenland, which again, this issue itself has been resolved, but that uncertainty is almost as bad as the conflict itself.
Yeah.
And now, had the issue not been resolved, it could have affected trading and shipping. And then you could have seen costs in that sector go up, and that would have trickled into costs in other sectors. So inflation
Yeah.
could have been higher, could be higher for longer.
Hmm.
And the price level inflation also ties a lot more into expectations. So one of the reason
Yeah.
prices in Japan don't rise too high, too aggressively, is because the Japanese consumer doesn't expect them to. So in
Yeah.
this era of uncertainty, people expect prices could go higher or remain higher for longer. And so what it means
Hmm.
is it might be harder for central banks to bring inflation back down to normal levels. So there you might see elevated rates, elevated policy rates for longer than you might have otherwise. Um,
Yeah.
Interestingly, also some you already see some research like KKR research, which does the sort of global macro research. They said this in end of 2025, and this sort of I think supports their thesis. So
Hmm.
most people in the market, most analysts were saying we're going to see inflation come down back to eventually end of 2026 normal levels, which is for the United States around 2%. What KKR said is we're entering this period where it's a regime change for interest
Mm.
rates and inflation.
Yeah.
And so what they said is because of all of these developments and this higher inflation rate, the base rate or the floor is higher now. So we won't come back down to
Mm.
2%. We might come back down to 2.5% or even higher. And
Okay.
based on the sort of geopolitical upheavals we see, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's very important to look into these researches, which is done by experts who understand the market more in
100%.
depth with a more professional approach. And thank you so much for sharing the resource. That is important for our also listeners to our investors, Muslim investors, to go and learn and do those researches. Of course, one. Um, a tool may not be enough. And then I'll share in a little bit how Musaffa's platform and what you can take as a benefit. But always for the research purposes, of course, we're developing and adding all of these amazing tools for you. We want to reach to somewhere that you don't need to go anywhere. That's why we actually launched our trading platform that you can also trade in Musaffa. You don't have to go any other brokerages or other platforms to do buy and sell with the real life data, real time data. You can do a real buy and sell on Musaffa now. It is not through the connecting other brokerages, but it's Musaffa's trading platform with, of course, partnerships of different vendors on the market. But this is where you can truly feel a halal trading platform, right? And then, of course, we're developing constantly all the different tools. One of the recent one we launched as a one-to-one courses that will be given to our Invest Plus users. It's an amazing approach. I believe with this, all our users are gonna enjoy these one-to-one courses. They're gonna learn an amazing things, inshallah, in terms of how to become a successful, inshallah, the investors. So if I go a little bit further, so um, the risk management. What the risk management strategy should disciplined investors consider when geopolitical drives volatility? So this kind of things. Of course, we discussed actually on our Venezuela topic one, but this is a good reason to remind us again back about those which we discussed on our previous market talk. So if you can give your thoughts on this.
For sure, for sure. There's a few things investors should keep in mind, a few strategies that they can implement. Number one is always diversification. So, like we were discussing earlier, brother Anath, like we can't really predict these things. Nobody predicted what
Mhm.
was going to happen in Venezuela. Nobody predicted what was going to happen with Greenland, really. And there's likely to be in our lifetime, and in fact, even in this year, other events that nobody's going to predict. And
Yep.
so the important thing is to diversify. So if I have all my money in the United States and there's an event I can't predict, then my money is suddenly volatile. It could go down. If I have my money split between the United States and Europe, then if something happens in the United States, I still have my money in Europe that might balance that out. If something
Yep.
happens in both of those places, but I also have money in the Gulf, so it's good to diversify because you can't predict everything. Markets can't
Yep.
predict everything. And so it's good to diversify so that even if you have these black swan events, these unpredictable things that move markets aggressively in some market, they might not move it as much as in another market. So diversification is number one. Number two is cash. As any restaurant owner will tell you, cash is king. But It's
Yeah.
good to have some cash because in these moments of volatility, it's free, it's liquid, and you can move it to where you might need to move it. So if you see something
Hmm.
performing poorly, something effective, and you have some cash on hand, you can move it where you need to move it. Third is, and we alluded to the fact that investors were already doing this globally, is I think in the era we're entering with this geopolitical upheavals and uncertainty, it makes more sense to increase, and this is not financial advice, this is my personal opinion. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it makes more sense from my perspective and the perspective of others as well, such as Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, is that it makes more sense to have more of your portfolio leaning towards sort of safe assets such as gold, which
Hmm.
in times of geopolitical stress or uncertainty, you always see investors flock to gold because gold is sort of the money when all other money fails. Um, Bitcoin as well is increasingly sort of serving that function, but gold always is. In fact, the founder of the bank JP Morgan, Jean Pierre Point Morgan, he has a quote I really like. He said, gold is money, everything else is credit, which it
Yeah.
really shows you why, when everything else is going up and down, people run to gold. And then lastly, if you invest in high quality stocks that pay clean, regular dividends, that's also something that's really useful for investors and that they should keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing analysis. I really like how you went into different important diversification and other areas where people can put and use their assets. It's very important, and this comes over the time of um, getting acquainted, familiarizing yourself with the market, how it operates, right? Anyone you talk to, the first thing that they learn about diversification. And all of these are basic and foundational, right? So as long as you quickly learn them, you will operate properly within the market with a stress-free enough. Of course, you cannot be 100% stress-free, but at least you will tone down your stress, right? Imagine if you put everything right now. Of course, the Muslims don't put in the defense, but imagine if the defense market, like all the companies collapse and you were only relying on them. What happens? Or you relied only on oil, and suddenly something happens, and then everything goes down, right? It's huge risk for everyone. So that's why diversification is very important. I guess it's the first rule that any investor out there has to learn. Thank you so much. So now a little bit of forward-looking. What are the scenarios for how Greenland geopolitical could evolve over the next 6 to 12 months? Your thoughts on this, and what would each mean, like either long-term or short-term effect on the markets, if you
Great
think?
question. Great question. So I think there's a few different ways this could play out. It's kind of opaque right now. So President Trump said that they're approached a framework for a deal. So the deal itself is probably still in the works. So I think one thing is we really have to wait and see what happens. But there are a few different ways this could play out. One is the United States has a treaty with Greenland going back to 1951, which allows the United States to open and set up and control as many military bases basically that it needs on Greenland. And so a deal will probably be around a similar framework if it doesn't involve the United States obtaining Greenland, which is most likely that it won't, in my opinion. So you're probably going to see the United States opening up more bases on Greenland, probably some more missile silos, things to bolster sort of the Golden Dome project that the United States is potentially working on. So you're going to see a lot more defense involvement in Greenland, a lot more U.S. involvement. Europe also recently, in response to this tension, bolstered its presence on Greenland already. So it's
Mhm.
possible that if you don't see the United States opening as many bases, it might be some sort of sharing. So some bases opened by the US, some opened by Europe, rather than Europe pulling out entirely and all, the United States opening as many bases as it can, just to sort of save on costs and resources for the United States as well. Um, I would say there's still a chance the United States tries to obtain Greenland. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, but it's possible. That could also take a few different ways. I think sort of a military annexation is highly unlikely. And President Donald Trump also ruled that out at Davos recently.
Yeah.
You might see
Yeah.
something more similar to, like I said, Greenland only has like 50,000 people. So if there is a referendum, you could see the United States sort of buying out Greenlanders in order to vote for being a part of the United States. So you could see, for example, if the United States gave each Greenlander $100,000, that's $5.6 billion, I think, which is a lot of money, but not really a lot of money for the United States to leverage if it needs to leverage. So you could see that. Oh, I think Brother Renath got disconnected.
No,
I'll
I'm here.
read
I'm
it.
here.
Oh, okay.
It got off my camera for a second. So thank you so
Of
much.
course,
Yes, keep.
of
Yeah.
course, no worries. Yes. So you could see that sort of deal where the United States sort of buys out Greenland, which countries have done before, not with Greenland, but elsewhere as well. You could also see what the United States has a deal with certain island or microstates. So Micronesia, Palau, it has a compact of free association, according to which residents of those microstates can come to the United States without a visa. They can study in the United States. They get some benefits from the United States, and in exchange, the United States can use it for whatever defense purposes it needs. So I think you're most likely going to see something along those lines.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much in going into detail as well. I can see that you took a very close look into the scenarios and situations,
Of
and
course,
share
of
with the
course.
audience, which is very important for everyone to get quickly this information, right? Because you can go and read, but if someone takes that information, consumes it, and analyzes, and then gives like succinct, summarized variations, you learn it quickly. These days, the video material or video content is the king, right? Where you can
100%.
get quickly from the human being sharing what is the correct, or like, you can say everything is correct because you take it from your own lenses, but the more distilled, more more thought through information coming to you is better to get it than just thrown to the flood of the information online, right? So thank you so much for going to. Now, if I can put my screen on, I would ask our moderators. Sister Nafisa Khan is helping us at the back end. I wanted to share a little bit our platform for everyone, just to walk through for the people who are watching us. So I'll go to our platform. This is your favorite Musaffa platform, where you can get all of this. Don't forget that you have this section here, the where you can see all of the tools that you can use. Right. My favorite one, of course, Halal Stock Screener, where I can screen everything. We'll come back to this. I love Super Investors Tracker, and it's actually connected to each stock, which will give you the clues. Okay, who's buying what? Like if you search like FWOL, if some of the super investors dropped it or bought it or did it, and then my one of the very favorite one is Halal ETFs screener. This is unique one to Musaffa. We developed the proprietary screening methodology with IOFI's approval, right? It was back and forth with Musaffa's team, reaching out and working with the IOFI board to actually approve it. And then we have the only one who's like screening methodology developed so that you can analyze, and it gives you broader access to halal ETFs. If you for example, look here, it gives you in US market 74 ETFs. But if you look only certified ones, like their own board certified, there could be like a 5 or 10, or I don't know exact number. Those you can find it here as well. But the ones that are screened and halal by Musaffa are as around like a 70 ETFs that you can take a full advantage of it, right? And it's additional source for you. And I would like to highlight a few new things which came. So Halal Stock Screener has an amazing these screeners. For example, my favorite one is this price volume trading, value metrics, and financial performance. I take full advantage of these. If you put, for example, beta 1 at around 1, it gives you all the ones that are not volatility. So especially during the time of this market volatility, this would be the one of the best tools. For example, if I put this A and then 1, you will see that. Let me actually put also halal ones. I'll show you that these do not get affected quickly on the with the market volatility. If I go to MasterCard, of course, MasterCard could be a little bit confusing for people that why it is halal, but because they only use the services, they don't get involved in the interest themselves. They work as a like service provider, right? That's why, and then providing the credit cards itself, this system and technology. But let's look at the Cisco. If you look at the Cisco, and if you look at the this graph, you can see the volatility. Sometimes you see this some charts show like drop down a lot and go up, right? So, but here you can see, except this one, whatever happened in the 2000s, which is a long time ago. In general, even in COVID, it didn't drop too much, right? COVID probably here around this time, it didn't drop too much, right? So, and then with the volatility on the market of Venezuela and everything else, you can see it's still stable. So you want to look into this kind of tools that you can use with the all to technology we built and made it available for you for your own use. And then if you click here, we added this recently, trade. You can see that by clicking trade, it will take you to our trading platform. Check which countries it is available. If you click go to our academy, it has all the amazing articles and all the information. We put a pricing here just to give you a quick update. So we launched this very recently. We want you to take a full advantage. So this is one-on-one educational sessions, 3 sessions on different topics. Investing fundamentals. This will go just give you all of this basic level information that you don't get confused. And then foundations of halal investing. What is the halal investing stands for, right? Like IOFE board and rules and regulations. People may think just we say halal, but what does that mean? You need to understand that. And then your first trade on Musaffa, we will walk you through how the trading platform operates, etc. So you can take full advantage, and you will have a dedicated account manager given to you. So it's an amazing opportunity to take full advantage of this and build your halal investment. Alhamdulillah. So thank you so much for giving me this time to share our platform. And again, for everyone's attention, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to leave any highlights about this session, feel free. We're gonna be I guess 30 more seconds, 1 more minute to give you opportunity to share anything that you want to share. But it was an amazing session. Thank you so much, brother Shah, again for your time. And I want to remind about the disclaimer again, that this whatever we discuss on these market talks with Musaffa, it's only for informational, illustrative, and educational purposes. We don't intend to share any expert ideas in terms of that. You can take it as advice. None of these information that we shared is legal, accounting, professional, financial, or investment advice. And anything that we share is also timestamped, right? If we discuss it here, don't take this video in the future and then make your decisions or whatever. Like, don't take it as the information when this information is not current, right? What we discussed is as of today. So thank you so much. So the one of our users is so nice, who we posted their questions, and then how they commented about the great sessions. They're saying again, listen the whole session and they enjoyed. So this makes us going, right? Thank you so much, Brother Shah, for your time. I guess we can end here. It was very, very nice and informational session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
Assalamu
much.
alaikum to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.